why you shouldn't let your family think you are strong. Maybe it's more so of not letting yourself think that you are so strong that you don't need anybody, or that you don't need to share your pain with anybody, or that there's no one you can trust with your pain or that you can lean on. And of course, this is learned behavior. I know for me it is. I have learned to depend on myself, to trust myself, to lean on myself. And that's because I haven't really had other people be there for me, especially my family. My own mother, I haven't been able to lean on her, to trust that she will be there for me emotionally, to trust that she will support me, to trust that I can cry on her shoulders. I haven't really been given that full platform to for her to be there for me. And sometimes it's hard to talk about these things. Like, even right now, I feel my heart, it's so heavy just talking about this, because in talking about these things in all these episodes, it's more of me affirming my reality and accepting the truth as is, that my family has never been and may never be there for me in the emotional capacity that I hope they would be there for me. They will never really just be there for me in the way that matters. And it's so sad to think that in their mind they think they are there for me. In their mind they think they are doing, the best that they can. And I think that also breaks my heart, because if I were to bring this conversation up, it would just hurt more for them to think that they are doing enough, and that what I'm asking of them is unreasonable. Or, as they always say, I'm asking them to be perfect, which is never the case. And I hate it when they say that, because they just don't want to reflect and look at themselves and look at how they've treated me, and if they've actually been there for me. And so they haven't been there for me. And because I became self reliant at a very young age, from a very young age, people started saying I'm mature, I'm way too mature for my age, or that I'm strong. Even my own mother, especially my mother, would say this most of the time. Oh, you are so strong, you're so mature. And at the time I thought it was a compliment, but now I just realized that it wasn't really a compliment. It's more of a way of just keeping you shut out. I don't know how to explain this. It's more of a way of blocking you from needing them. Because if you already have this title of being so strong or so mature for your age, it's almost like when you do need them and you realize that, hey, I'm not as strong, I'm weak right now. And as a child, the truth of the matter is, even if I might have seemed like I was way mature for my age, like to other people, it looked like that. The matter of the fact is, I was just still a child. And now, whenever I just hear adults saying to a child, oh, this child is so strong or they're so mature, it disgusts me. I hate it. Because at the end of the day, I don't care how smart a child is. I don't care how strong they say. It's a great thing to have. But I think then parents, they take away the responsibility that they have, because they think this child is so strong, because they think that this child is so mature, that they start not being as involved in that child's life, because they always think, oh, like, she's strong, she's smart, she will figure it out. Like, I think that's what my mother did, because she was like, oh, she's strong, she's mature for her age. And I think emotionally, maybe she distanced herself or thought I didn't need her as much. And I did. So I don't care if you look at a child and think like, oh, she's so smart, she's so mature, she's so, like, above her age. That child still needs all the emotional support. They still need their parents, they still need their loved ones to be there for them, to support them. Even if they're the smartest kid in the world, they're still a child. And they still, I mean, even if you're not a child, even if you're a full grown adult, you still need emotional support. You still need people to be there for you. Even if you are a genius, I don't care if you are Einstein. Einstein needed to be loved too, I would hope. But I grew up being told that I'm strong, grew up being told that I'm way mature for my age. And I remember there was this lady, my mother's friend, who used to annoy me and used to say that I'm a lady. And I don't hate because there's this now progressive mentality where people are like, don't call me a lady, I can do whatever. I am not with it. I'm not about it. I'm not with it. I do consider myself to be a lady, and I'm proud to be a lady, you know. But this lady, my mother's friend, she used to say to me, like, she'll maybe find me sitting in the street with other kids in the pavement, and then she'll say, oh, you shouldn't do that, you are a lady. And it's all these things like, you're strong, you're mature, you're a lady, that I felt like restrained me. So now I felt like I couldn't do certain things because people considered me to be mature, or people considered me to, to not act childish when I was a child. I am supposed to act like a child. And so this lady will always say like, oh, you are such a lady, you're so put together, like you mind your business, so much so that when she found me with other kids or doing other childlike activities, she would say, you shouldn't be doing that. You're a lady. And it would annoy me so much because I've always been someone who really internalizes things and really takes them in. And then I become self conscious. And so when this lady would say something like that, when she would find me playing with other kids or maybe playing with dirt, and then she would say, oh, you are a lady, you shouldn't do that, I would then become self conscious and restrained when it came to playing with other kids, because then I would think, ugh, I'm supposed to be this lady, I'm supposed to be mature, I'm supposed to be strong and not do these things. And especially when it came to being strong, it really made me not only self conscious of my feelings, but it also made me not want to share my feelings because, if you're already bombarded with this title that you are strong, it almost becomes a fear to show people that you are weak. Then you become afraid to show people that, hey, I am actually not as strong as you guys think. I might possess the quality of being strong. I might have some resilience in me, but the truth of the matter is, no matter how strong you are, life will always get to you, at one point or another. And so I felt restrained to no longer share my emotions, to no longer share how I really felt because, like my own mother would say I'm strong. And I remember, I think while I was in varsity, I actually started talking to my family about this because now they no longer say I'm strong, because I actually started talking to them about this. And at the time, I wasn't aware of like the emotional toxicity, abuse, distance, narcissism that's going around here. But I started talking to them. I was like, you know what? I don't like being called strong. I actually started to hate being called strong because I felt like it has restrained me all my life, because I think I bottled so many things in my heart because I always just wanted to be strong, like I was perceived to be strong. I seemed to be strong. I think it was a character that I had, but I think it shouldn't have taken the responsibility away from my mother to still be there for me. If she saw that, you know what, this child of mine, she seems to be stronger than the others, okay? And that's fine. I don't think that gave her the right to kind of like back away and be like, oh, she's fine. In, and not in a sense that, I don't even know if I'm explaining this right, because it was more of like an emotional neglect, It's not like then she would say, oh, like she can just go and jump over the cliff because she's strong, she'll survive. It wasn't anything hectic like that, okay? But it was more of an emotional neglect because she thought, oh, like she's strong, she can handle herself, she can handle things, that she no longer really paid attention to me. And the reason I actually say this is because I saw how my mother was with my sister. And when I was a child, when I was a teenager, I thought it was because she's the last born, like she gave her more attention. And she always treated my sister like, she wasn't strong, which I think maybe my sister might have hated me for, because like she knew that I was the one who was called like strong, mature, a lady. I think she might have also had like maybe bitterness or resentment towards me, I would imagine, because I think my mother considered my sister to be weak. She never said this, but in the way that she treated my sister, it was more of like, okay, pay attention more to this one, help her out, which implied the things that she would do for my sister, the way that she would treat my sister, it kind of implied that, my sister isn't as strong as me, so she needs more attention. But what I was looking at, so on the other side, I imagine my sister, resenting me and thinking, oh, like she's the strong one, so I'm the weak one. But for me, I was looking at my sister and wishing that the attention that my mother was giving my sister, that she was also giving me. I wished I wished that my mother treated me like I'm weak, because this whole title of being strong left me feeling neglected, left me feeling like I always had to deal with my own emotional stuff. I always had to be strong. I always had to be courageous. I always had to like be the pillar of strength for my mother, for my family, because I'm the strong one. So it left me really feeling neglected, so much so that I grew up to hate being strong. Because when I was in varsity, my feelings were really starting to boil up, and I was realizing that I have a lot of undealt issues. I have a lot of things that are just within me that I've never really dealt with, because I always perceived myself to be strong. I was always told that I'm strong, and it was starting to get too much. My cup was starting to fill up to the brim. And so when I came back home, one of the times when I was in varsity, I told them that I don't like being called strong. And that's when they actually started stopping. As like in the couple of years since I've been back home, they no longer call me strong, because I really expressed how I feel like that is suppressed me, how I felt like that was a weight on my shoulder, like being told that I'm strong, being expected to be strong. It started to be really a weight on me. And not only was I told that I'm strong and da 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 da, I think I was just expected to take on way more than a child should have been expected. It was one thing that I was perceived to be like the strong person who can handle herself, or this mature person, this ladylike kid. I was a kid, but also like my mother, because she saw me as the strong one, she felt like she could unburden on me. She could like, talk to me about certain things. She could like lean on me maybe for making certain decisions. She could like lean on me when situations were tough. And what she didn't realize is that really started to get heavy on me. It really, really did. And in as much as at the time I was like, you know what, I'm being here for my mother because she's a single woman raising three kids. I thought I was helping my mother by like, taking all this in, helping her with making certain decisions, her unloading on me, her sharing certain things, her sharing her struggles. But I wasn't aware that I was actually taking a load that I couldn't carry. And my mother didn't even take a chance to think that, can my child still handle this? Because in as much as she considered me to be strong, she never stopped to consider that I was still a child at the end of the day. This is why I'm saying I don't care how much you think a child is strong, how smart you think they are, how mature they are. Those are beautiful qualities to have, but please, please still keep in mind that this is just a child. They are still a child. And I ended up carrying a lot of things on my shoulders, not only my mom's stuff, because I was trying to carry her and I was trying to carry my own stuff. It became too much. It became too much. And I expressed this, that I no longer want to be called strong, that I hate being called strong. I hated it. I hated being called strong so much so that even when other people called other people strong, I hated it. Like someone would be talking about someone else and they'd be like, "Oh, that person is so strong." I hated someone else calling someone strong on their behalf because I was like, they probably not strong. They probably really burdened right now. They probably feel a lot of pressure to act like they're always strong. I hated being called strong. And I think it did release some pressure from me to kind of like let my family know that, hey, I can't do this strong thing. I know you guys say it as a compliment, but to me, it actually feels like a burden because people actually say it as a compliment. They're like, oh, you're so strong. Like, you always bounce back or you always manage da da da. No, it's a lot of pressure. It's burden. And I didn't want to be called that anymore. So I always had to figure stuff out on my own because I didn't want to stress my mother. I think that was like my main thing. The more I speak about these issues on these episodes, I realized that one of the main concerns that I had was just not stressing out my mother. I really didn't want to stress out my mother. I was a good kid for my mother. Was a respectful child, did everything right. I was the strong child. I was the mature child because I just didn't want to stress my mother out, which I think that is why it hurt more when I saw her giving my sister the attention that I would have liked to get. It would hurt me more because for me, it was me not wanting to stress her out, but then seeing her worry about my sister's things. And this is not even to say she shouldn't have like paid attention to my sister. This is not to say she shouldn't have like worried about my sister's issues or whatnot. She should have, but she should have also worried about me. She should have also paid attention to me. And I never got that. I never got what my sister got. And in as much as I realized that maybe for my sister it created some resentment within her to know that I'm the strong one, but at the same time she also doesn't know that I envied her. I envied the attention that she got from my mother because she wasn't considered to be as strong as I was considered to be. So yeah, I always had to figure stuff out on my own. I think that's why I live in my head so much. I have a vivid imagination. I really live in my head. I like my own space. I don't easily socialize with people. I mostly think about things than talk about them. I mostly feel things than talk about them because growing up, that is just how I processed my emotions. I would think about them. What's the word? I would ruminate. I would just get stuck in my feelings until sometimes I got better, sometimes I didn't get better, but that is just how I processed my feelings. That is how I processed my thoughts. And now, even though I'm on a healing journey, I'm still that kind of person that's really stuck in their head. Like, I feel like in my head, I am more talkative than I am in real life. I feel like in my head, I am more expressive than I actually am in real life because I've never been given the platform to express myself. And so I'm still afraid to express myself verbally, to actually share my thoughts. Like, sometimes I'll even hold back from saying something that I think is funny because I am so self conscious that, oh, maybe they're not going to think it's funny because I'm really not used to being expressive. I'm really not used to expressing myself, to saying what I think. I'm not used to saying how I feel. And so for me, it really takes some thinking. I'm really one of those people who really thinks before they speak. Like, trust me, when I say something, I've thought about it. I don't just blurt things out. I mean, randomly blurt things out. I really think about it and I choose my words carefully. I choose my thoughts, like, what am I going to say? How am I going to deal with this? Because that is just how I have handled my emotions and my thoughts for the longest time. And I realized that things like sometimes minor things, I always say minor things, but they actually were a big deal. Like, for example, even things like just applying for school or for varsity. Nobody helped me with that. And sometimes I think I'm being paranoid, but then I have to remind myself that I'm not being paranoid. But just like applying for school of varsity, nobody helped me with that. I don't know why I'm getting upset at this. Nobody helped me with those things. I had to figure out those things by myself. And if you've ever applied for varsity, you know how stressful it is because if you're like, I applied online or I actually filled out forms and then I also applied online. So I did both of the application processes because I was applying in different places. Like, nobody's here to help you. Like, obviously, the varsity people, they're not here helping you to fill this form out. And sometimes you don't know what you're supposed to write, you don't know what they're asking for. And sometimes you have to get other documents, certified. It's a process. It is such a process, and you get stuck and you're like, what am I supposed to say here? And it might seem like a little thing, like such a basic thing, but I feel like my mother would never even take the chance to like just ask me. And I think that's the thing that I hate about being called strong, because once people consider you to be strong, they no longer feel the need to ask if you're okay, if you need help, if you're stuck. And I think that's one of the things that really happened in my own family with my own mother, that they ended up not asking because I was considered to be strong, that I nobody asked. Nobody asked like, how's the application process going? They wouldn't ask like, how are you doing? Like, I even just got to a point where I didn't even ask for help because I learned to be self-reliant, to depend on myself. So I would figure out these things by myself. And I had nobody else, not an adult, not an older sibling that could help me with like feeling these things out. And so it's things like that that I had to do by myself, like dealing with issues at school, from high school to varsity. Everything for me was just like internalized. Even sometimes, if my family knew what I was going through, I don't think they really knew the full extent of what I was going through. Like when I did change schools from like going from a township school to a multiracial school, which I did from like, I switched when I was going from grade 9 to grade 10. And it was a very hard transition. It was the hardest transition in my life ever. And it's amazing that I'm not afraid of change, because that was the hardest change I've ever faced in my life. The transition was so hard, from me going from an all black people school to like multiracial school, model C school. And it wasn't even just the multiracial factor of it, it was just like the system, the process. Like, it was an entirely different hierarchy. It was an entirely different way of doing things from what I've been used to. Because from grade 1 to grade 9, I had gone to township schools. I went to 3 different schools between grade 1 and grade 9, but they were all township schools. And so there was a certain familiar way that I knew about them. And so when I went to this other school, this multiracial model C school, it was such a hard transition. Yo, it was hard. And my family saw that it was hard. And I think I would tell them, but I don't think they fully understood how hard that was for me. I don't think they fully understood, because at that time, I was already a teenager. I had gotten to a point where I don't really fully express myself, because the being strong titled the being strong title was already engraved in my head. So what I just told myself is that I just have to stick it out. I just have to be strong and stick it out. So much so that when I actually got to that school, because in grade 10, that's where you choose your subjects that you're going to specialize in. I chose physics, which was really hard for me. And there was an option to change. Like, I think in June, grade 10, you could change. And then when you're about to start grade 11, you could change. And I think that was the last time where you could change your subjects. But because I was already so used to like me telling myself that I'm strong, I can just push through, I can persevere. I didn't change that subject. Not because I wanted to be perceived as like being smart, studying like physical sciences. No, I didn't change it because I thought it would be weak. I would seem weak to change the subject and do something that was much easier. I could have done like maybe business studies, which would have been much better for me. But I stuck to that subject because I perceived myself to be strong. And I think there have been a number of things that I've done in life which I should have just given up on. And I'm not promoting a mentality of giving up, but sometimes you should know when you should just give up, okay? There's like a balance between the two. It's not like you should always be giving up on stuff without really giving them a try, but at the same time, there's just a time. There's a time when it's time to give up. And I think I put myself through a lot of different things in my life because I was just like, I'm strong, I should just do this. And I would push when actually I should have just stopped pushing. There are certain things that I should have stopped doing, but I didn't want to disappoint, I guess, myself because I already had been conditioned to believe that I'm so strong that I shouldn't give up, or I shouldn't do something that's going to make me seem weak. And even like taking my driver's license, even like taking my drive, I feel like my family just sometimes I feel like they think certain things are easy for me because they just like, oh, she's strong, she'll cope, she'll manage. Taking your driver's license is pretty scary. Like if you've never driven before, like I had not at that time, it was also a challenging experience. I mean, it wasn't like the biggest thing like in my life or the most challenging thing in my life, but it was also challenging. And today we were actually saying a prayer for my sister who's going to take her driver's license. And honestly, I don't remember. I'm not going to lie. I don't remember if we said a prayer for me. Maybe we did, okay? Maybe we did say, maybe like my mother did say, because when we were praying today, she said, after we had just finished our family prayer, then she said, let's pray for my sister because she's taking her driver's license. And in my mind, I was like, did we pray for me? Did she specifically ask for a specific prayer for me when I was going to take my driver's license? I don't remember. Honestly, maybe she did. Maybe she did because I really don't remember. But it's these type of things where it's like my sister is considered to need more attention. Like we just need to be there for her. Like my sister, she needs us. And I thought it was because she was the youngest, but it's honestly not. It is because I'm considered to be strong. And so sometimes they think I don't need the support. They think I don't need them to be there for me to ask me how I'm doing and how I'm feeling. And so I also just got used to them not asking me. So I just stopped even telling them. Even like going to a different city, when I was going to varsity, I left on my own. I went to that city. I don't know why, man. It's feeling so heavy for me. I went to a different city by myself. I'm going to a place that I didn't know anyone there. I was supposed to meet up with somebody, but God was good and I made it safely. It all worked out. But here's what I'm thinking. This wouldn't be the case with my sister. If my sister packed up and left for varsity, like my mother would probably go with her. And not because at the time my mother didn't have a car, not because my mother now has a car. Even if she didn't have a car, I bet you me that she would have made a plan. Even if she didn't have a car, if it was my sister going to a different city by herself, my mother would have made a plan to accompany her. But for me, there's this presumption, there's this assumption that, oh, she's going to be fine, she can make it. And it's not even like, it's not even it's not like they are rude about it. I don't know if rude is the word. It's not like my mother was like, oh, you'll be fine, just pack your stuff. She was worried as a parent because I was going to a different city by myself. But even though she was worried, and like maybe took the necessary precautions, like getting the number from the other person I was supposed to meet with, like calling along the journey just to make sure that I'm okay. But she doesn't go the extra mile like she would for my sister. Like I'm saying, for my sister, she would have probably taken the taxi with her. But because it was me, she was just concerned to a certain level, you know? She was like, okay, I'll call her, I'll check on her, I'll get the number. Like she was concerned to a certain level. It's not like she just put me in a taxi and forgot about me. But at the same time, it's not like how she would have handled it with my sister. And I think maybe that's the problem, that I feel like I'm always comparing myself with my sister. Also, just like dealing with any challenges in life, I've really dealt with a lot of things by myself. And I think my family would be surprised at some of the things that I've been through, or even some of the things that they know that I've been through. They would be surprised at how severe and serious the things were, more than they thought it was, because I have now learned, I've really gotten good at not sharing how difficult or hard things are for me, because again, I'm told that I'm strong, right? I grew up being told that I'm strong, I'm this and that, I'm mature, so I just no longer really fully express how I I really feel and what I'm really going through. Now, because my family is like this, I really have little to no hope that I could get to a point where I am fully expressive with my family and I really share what I'm feeling and what I'm going through with them, because they are still emotionally distant, they are still emotionally toxic. There's a lot of emotional unhealthiness going around. So I really doubt that I'll ever get to a place where I can fully just like express myself to them. But I am praying to God, and this is like a continuous prayer, because I'm praying to God that God help me to not assume that every other person that I'll meet in my life, for instance, friends, my partner, my future husband, that they will be like that. I would still like to give other people the opportunity to be there for me. I would still like to give other people the opportunity for them to see me fully, for me to fully open up to them, for me to be vulnerable. And so some of the things that I need to do is to start asking for help and accepting help. Because for me, it was one thing that I couldn't even ask for help, but sometimes other people would offer help and I wouldn't take it. I guess maybe subconsciously I thought it was weak or I couldn't. Sometimes I think I was a good person in a bad way. You know, when you're so good, like somebody offers you maybe a lift and you're walking a distance and you're like, no, I'm going to get your car dirty, so I'll walk. Okay, that's a super exaggerated example, but I think sometimes I was too good of a person for my own good. It sometimes was bad for me to think that I'm being good, but it was actually bad for me. So sometimes I wouldn't accept help from other people because I thought I would inconvenience them. So I wouldn't allow other people to help me because I thought, oh, like, you shouldn't go out of your way to help me. Again, this goes back to how my own family treated me, because I didn't see my mother going out of her way to be there for me, to help me. I didn't see my sister going out of her way to be there and help me. So when other people in my life, when I started meeting other people and they would try to like, okay, I'm gonna go the extra mile to help you, for me it didn't seem normal. And I thought I should be the one who always gives, gives, gives. So sometimes I felt like, oh, that's gonna inconvenience you, that's gonna like maybe take you out of your way, and you were going this direction, now you go in this direction for me, and I don't, that's uncomfortable for me, so I wouldn't accept help. So now I realize that I need to start asking for help when I need help, and stop pushing this view of myself as strong. Yes, I am strong, and now I am learning to embrace that side of me. But now I can admit that I'm not always strong. Sometimes I don't easily bounce back up. Sometimes I'm not resilient. Sometimes I'm not as strong as I would hope to be. So I need help, and I need to accept help when people offer me help, and I need to learn to prioritize myself to myself. And then I also need to teach other people to prioritize me. This doesn't mean that I should be the center of anybody's world, but it means that I have to also teach other people that, hey, at certain points, I need to be number one. Like when I'm in crisis or I'm in a situation right now, you need to focus on me. You know what I mean? I don't know. It sounds selfish, but in my mind, it makes sense because I've put myself in the back seat for so long, just always prioritizing other people, never prioritizing myself to myself, and never allowing other people to prioritize me. And so now my mind is shifting that no, I gotta learn to prioritize myself to myself first. Because it will first always start with me. And then I gotta teach other people to prioritize me because I'm not always as strong as I'd like to be.